Welcome to Vitamin OC. I'm Joanna Weiss.
And I'm Whitney Gomez. Every week we bring you your recommended dose of civics and civilization in Orange County. And we have been anticipating this podcast for a while now. Greg Kaplan, who many of you have listened to, friend of the podcast, has been raving about Natalie and Tom Giannulli and their exciting new project, Budget You.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to have you with us, Natalie and Tom. Natalie, you're a former entertainment executive who is focused on employee and talent management and community outreach. And Tom, incredibly, you're a physician and a serial entrepreneur focused on healthcare software startups. You have a master's in engineering and an MD, which we again find incredible. You have founded a number of successful software companies in the past 30 years. You're currently working on integrating AI in the delivery of healthcare. You've both taken your professional backgrounds to this new project that we're excited to talk with you about, Budget You.
Well, let's get into it. More than half of teens say that they feel unprepared to finance their futures, according to new research from Junior Achievement and Citizen. The same survey found that only 45% of teens had received any form of financial literacy instruction in their high school, and I actually think that number feels a little bit high to me. Students are learning to do the ACT and the SAT, but not manage everyday finances. Given your work on this project, Tom and Natalie, what do you think young people should be focused on learning about finances as they leave home for college?
For kids, when they are leaving home for the first time, there's so many emotions going on. There's anxiety, there's stress, it's a new environment, it's a new city, most likely. So really for us, it's just the basics. Like, what are the basics of basic budgeting?
As you enter adulthood in college, you start getting new skills. You need to be more responsible for your independence, financial independence being one of those items. And it's an ideal time to introduce the basic principles around budgeting and managing finances, at least for your college experience. And I think for a lot of families, college is very expensive and it can be daunting. There's a significant amount of students who actually exit university because of the stress in managing those finances. So it's important that there's a tool out there to allow them to understand what the parents and students agree on in terms of budget and how to follow, track, and manage that budget. That just helps everybody get to that next level.
It seems like starting college and starting to manage your own money all at once, that's a lot of change for a student. Is there a certain point in the high school years when you think it's appropriate to introduce these topics?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you can even roll it back even further than that. Quite honestly, in my head, it's when the doctor hands you your beautiful baby. It's like, start then, because it's a lot. I think you kind of bring into your kids what you were taught growing up. Tom and I come from very different backgrounds. I was raised by a single mom, and she worked really hard, and things were tough and they were tight, and she was very honest about her situation. And so I was very aware of what was going on. And I learned at an early age, the budget's the budget, and you stay within those parameters, which is not to say that it felt like I was deprived. It was actually kind of great in that I bought my first piece of jewelry when I was 12 years old. I learned about layaway and I paid it off in 1 month because after a month, they charge you interest. I learned that way, and it made me very fiscally responsible. I feel like we as a couple have brought those same types of goals and objectives into our kids in terms of planning. And when we introduce things, it started as early as playing grocery store. And, well, I want to buy that. Well, my daughter would always say things were really expensive. My son, I don't have enough money. Well, what are you going to do? Well, let's talk about that. How can we earn more money? How do we save? So there are a ton of little ways to bring it in, but definitely adolescence is the sweet spot to really start talking about money and your allowance. And kids during adolescence will most likely have a debit card. So you really kind of want to get ahead of that. But again, don't overwhelm them. Keep it simple.
In the old days, your parents handed you cash. That was your budget. You knew exactly what you had to spend, and it was physically gone, so it was easy to see and track. However, today, everything is online. You're using credit, debit, maybe your parents' accounts on Amazon or Uber, or maybe you have a card and you're not sure what the balance is, but you keep spending. So with the transition from cash to electronic to online, we really need a tool that kind of gives visibility to both the parents and the kids so they can agree on what are we spending, why, what categories, set it up, and you can track it as a parent and a kid to understand where you're at. And I think when you do that, everyone learns from that experience and there's harmony in the home versus a lot of the arguing about spending and the kids aren't sure why or what you're referring to. I think it starts, at an age when you can understand that. In this case, high school makes perfect sense to start kids and then prep them for that ultimate college experience.
Whitney and I have had conversations with our own kids as college-age children who have left home about managing money and trying to strike that balance between worrying all the time about money or being irresponsible. And it seems it's always one extreme or the other. And so before we start talking about what Budget U is, can you tell us about the why behind Budget U?
Well, the why sort of came out of a place of desperation. We have a daughter who started her first year of college, and we sat down as a couple and said, how are we going to do this? How are we setting up her budget? And my husband is very computer minded. So he said, well, let's see what apps are available. How can we set her up for success? And he's like, there's nothing. It's just absolutely, it's either super complicated or it's not going to provide the kind of guidance and guide rails that we need to be comfortable with as parents. And so he kind of went away for a weekend in his office and did what he does. And he's like, I got it. And we just fine-tuned and we sat together and we sat with our daughter and got her input. Because one of the things when you talk about budgeting, it has a negative connotation, especially for kids. They hear budget and it usually comes on the heels of, what do you mean you need more money? What are you spending it on? Need to get her spending under control. And it's, got to get her on a budget. And then you're like, well, that's great. Now it's like, this is going to punish you now. But it's really the exact opposite of that. It should give you confidence and empower you because at the end of the day, we're all on a budget. I don't care if you are a college student getting $300 a month from your family. If you're making $50,000 a year, you're making $500,000 a year. We all have to learn to live on a budget. And if you don't know, you really are setting yourself up for just that bad psychology of money where it's negative and it's stressful. As a young person to carry that with you your whole life, you don't want to start your kids out that way. You want to give them wings and confidence.
We really look for something that involves the family unit, not just, hey, here's an accounting app. You can track things like your bank account. We really need something that understands how you come together, set budgets, adjust them, and create transparency about what are you spending on. And by the way, one of the things we offer is a grouping by vendor or merchant. So you can understand how much am I spending on Uber, how much am I spending on Chipotle, a lot of money, apparently. So that gives them insight and we work together. And when they have that insight, they're much more reasonable than if we're coming at them kind of angrily without data or knowledge about their habit.
Well, you're so thoughtful about how you've approached this topic with your own kids, and it's wonderful that the rest of us can benefit from the work that you've put into this. You've seemed really mission driven about this. Can you talk a little bit about what your mission is and what you hope Budget U will be and teach others?
It's that sort of perception shift that budgeting is a dirty word. It's a bad word. It's negative. It's going to somehow crush you. It couldn't be more further from the truth. From our perspective, it's really build your budget, own your life. If you can follow a budget, no matter what your budget is, you have ownership in what's happening to you. If you don't know how to budget, you're out there, you're charging, you're overextended. Now you've got anxiety. And now guess who owns your life? A credit card company owns your life. And that sweater that you paid $50 for is now going to cost you $175 by the time you make the minimum payment and the compounded interest. So we want to empower families to confidently navigate financial discussions with one another through open, honest communication and make decisions about your finances together. That is our ultimate goal.
I guess another point is around learning to be financially independent. That takes time. It takes training wheels. This is kind of that effort. And then by the time you master, budgeting with Budget U, you can then, obviously master the next stage of your life when you become financially independent. Go get your first car loan, start managing your income based on job status. And it becomes a lot easier to be successful versus having to go back and rely on other sources like your parents and struggling essentially.
I think when we used to take our kids bowling and you'd go to the bowling alley and they'd say, do you want the guardrails up? Yes, absolutely. Because your kids were happy. They may have still bounced around. They didn't get a strike by any means. They got a pin down. They got maybe 2 pins down, but they became confident. And so this for us, it's like the guardrails. They're still under your wing to some degree. So it's the financial guardrail that's going to give them confidence. Again, the dialogue is still open. You're still a part of the discussion. But it's, for me, it's the bowling analogy.
Yeah, it's part of growing up. And I think today's culture, without all these, the guardrails used to be, here's the $20, spend it wisely. There is no guardrail anymore. So this helps do that.
Well, you had me at hello on the reason behind it. Now let's talk about what Budget You is and what it provides.
It's an app. You download it. It's a free download. You have 30 days to link it to your bank account, to your kids' bank accounts, and allow it to start building your budget. So the download is actually a piece of software that the kids use and the parents. You just sign up as a different role, and the software changes based on that role. So the parents have the same view as the children in terms of what's happening in the graphs and the data on what's being spent. The parents have the ability to make setting changes. And that's really the only difference. Parents also have the ability to switch profiles between kids. So the app works for the family. You can have 10 kids on it if you want. And both parents have their own version or their own sign-in, so they can look at it differently. And within that app, it links to a debit, credit, or one of 15,000 different bank accounts. So you don't need a specialized debit or credit card. Use any card, any program you want, even ones from like branded vendor. You simply link it, and then any transaction that comes in on that card or that account gets read by the system. It gets categorized and displayed to you. So what we like to do is have the parent set it up with their child having a new, say, debit account, say at a major bank, and have a card associated with that. And then have the child sign up for their own Uber, their own Amazon account, so that all the transactions are against those accounts assigned to them. And so everything that happens, every purchase, Venmo transactions, ATM withdrawals, and all that all show up on their account. So they have a really good accounting of what's going on. And the parent can then peer into that. And if they switch to another child on the list, then they see a different view based on their transactions based on their accounts. So the process is really sign up, get your kid an account with a credit or debit, and then transfer the online marketplace to that same account. We also have a setting for parents that allows them to select the university. In the case of university students, they're attending one of 7,000 different campuses. It'll automatically take that data with some cost of living data, and AI will then crank out a budget that's very close to what is typically done for those universities. You enter things in like the lifestyle, you have bronze, silver, or gold, depending on, how fancy you want to be. There's a housing, no housing, and selection, but it uses all that data to come up with a budget in 10 different categories, from rent, utilities, all the way down to miscellaneous. And those are the appropriate categories for, say, a student in college and even in high school. And once that's set, parents can slide the little sliders on and adjust that to make it customized to that particular family. But that's the budget that every month shows up. That's the budget that's funded to that dollar amount in their accounts. And as they spend, they see that number going down, but they see in which accounts they're spending it, and in each account, which merchants they're using, say Chipotle or Uber or whatnot. And it uses AI to give you a little message saying, your spending rate's good, you're on the right track, or you're predicted to be off track in a week, so make an adjustment. And it also uses AI to give you a summary every 10 days of your past 3 months trend, kind of the habits you're forming, and also your current month. So you really understand like what's happening, where's the money being spent, is it balanced, is it unbalanced, and give you some really good insights on how to budget better. And the parents get a monthly report, and then they also get notifications as a student or a parent when guardrails have been crossed. So there's some pretty obvious guardrails. You don't want to spend all your money in the first week or close to it. That'll signal an alert. But those are helpful because sometimes situations arise where it may be appropriate. It's just that it needs to have a conversation. That's a point that we need to have a talk about what's happening. It'll do all that kind of automatically. It's set it and forget it and learn as you go and make adjustments as a family. So it's pretty easy to manage. It's literally 3 screens of data. It reads all the data from your account activity, so you don't actually enter any data. You simply get information and AI narratives based on your behavior. There's another aspect of the budgeting that we reward students for their behaviors. If you're within 20% of your budget, negative or positive, you will be rewarded a certain dollar amount into a certain account, and you set that up on the system. And so the idea is we want kids to understand it's good to be on budget personally and for own satisfaction, but you also get rewarded. And in many cases, say it's a $100 grant to an investment account or to a savings account. It's not money you're going to spend necessarily, but it allows them to start understanding, well, how do I build wealth? What does investment look like? How do I get that, that acorn in my account to start investing with? So we can transfer that that money into, say, another investment account that kids tend to like today. So they can start understanding that part of finance, which is all within their budget, and add another dimension to, personal finance.
I'm pretty blown away by this, given the hours and hours I spent when we were first married, going to my credit card statement, going to the checking account, going to the spreadsheet. It was a lot of time figuring out what we had spent. This is going to be great and really helpful to so many people. The other thing Joanna and I have talked about is Venmo. Venmo is the black hole of student spending. Also Amazon. So I assume Venmo is hooked up to it as well?
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, it uses AI to take any transaction and scrub it to understand what is the vendor category. Is this clothing? Is this food and drink? Is this entertainment? It'll also know if it's an Amazon Fresh versus Amazon Prime. Separates all those and categorizes them, groups them. So you get a really good picture of where the money's going categorically and also by merchant. And that's easy for them to have a conversation, say, okay, here's where we need to make some conservative changes. It does track Venmo. It does track ATM withdrawal fees.
One of the things you mentioned was social media and the impact of that on kids these days and trying to have them budget. How can Budget You and the concept of budgeting fit in with this new landscape?
Kids, it's not just kids. I've fallen victim to late night scrolling going, oh God, that's really cute. Oh, I think I need that. Well, I've got 6 of them in my closet. I don't need it, but I saw it. And so for an adult to have those kind of knee-jerk reactions, you can only imagine what kids, and these kids in particular, everything in their life has been instantaneous. They push a button, it shows up. They don't go to the library. They're not looking up a Dewey Decimal System. They are Googling something and all the information they need is right there. It's been a struggle in our house. TikTok Shop. There's a TikTok Shop. That was a new one for me. In terms of the app, it is constant communication. It is giving them email reinforcements. Hey, this is great. You're on budget. You're doing fabulous. Keep it up.
But also, you have a budget. And when you spend your budget for food that you want to eat at Chipotle every day on Xbox games, you're out of budget at some point. And that's a tough moment for you, but it's a learning moment. And your parents could supplement that, or they could say, this has to be earned out somehow. That's a teaching moment that really comes to a head when they have a tool like this and they realize that they didn't manage things well. I would assume that wouldn't happen a lot. Maybe there's a learning curve there, but I think it's an opportunity for parents to really say, okay, well, we had this conversation. We gave you what was sufficient. You didn't really manage it well. And here you are. This is a good lesson for you to learn. Don't do that. And the penalty is you don't get to eat whatever you want. You got to go get some cereal and make some food, whatever. So in our house, that's how we're managing it. A little bit of tough love, but I think it's the only way to actually create lasting impressions.
There's so much talk right now about the cost of college. There's tuition, then there's the room and board. But I was very surprised when my kids went to college about the need for additional spending, which is definitely the culture in college today. When I went to college, I might have taken $20 out of the ATM that lasted a week or so. That is not the world we're living in today. Can you talk a little bit more about the budgeting side of Budget You and the power of having access to the cost of living and the location where students are? Because to me, that is a really incredible innovation.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important to set budgets appropriately. You don't want to have kids on budgets that are unrealistic. No one's going to learn anything. There's reasonable amounts of dollars for each account. The AI that's built into the system will actually peg it pretty close. You can adjust it based on your lifestyle level. The day-to-day expenditures that are the ordinary, cost of living related items like laundry, food and drink, entertainment, those are pretty regular. They should be pretty knowable by the system, and then you can make small adjustments. And I don't think you're going to have to move too far off that. Some of it's adjustment on the family side, like what is enough. If you decide you're going to go Greek and you're going to live in the house, there's obviously additional costs. You rebudget based on that. And those are reasonable costs. But, how you spend on a day-to-day basis based on a family budget that's been well discussed, I think is all about the discipline and understanding where you are and the transparency that the app gives you. And I really hope and I believe that kids will adjust appropriately when that happens versus kind of going off the rails and do what they want regardless. Because there's so many reasons why they're going to be seeing why that's not appropriate. And they're, quite frankly, unless you transfer more funds, you're not going to have the funds available to do what they want.
One of the things that we noticed, we said, okay, let's do some crazy experiment. Let's just see what happens when we don't say anything. Let's just see where we go in a month. And I opened my credit card bill and I was like, oh, okay, well, here's where we are. And we sat down with our daughter, and she's actually very responsible. And I said, this number right here, this is all you. And she was horrified because they don't know. It's just double click, double click. It's just the transparency and the kids being able to look and see, and it's there, and it's colors, and there's icons, and they can tap, and it can drill down into each category. It's really enlightening and empowering, and it's a confidence boost where they can say, gosh, look at, I'm spot on this month, or I'm a little over, I better,
Plus they like the reward too.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
that's something that they're very interested in hearing about.
I've got 3 kids in college, so I love the idea that we can use this. But for parents who might still have kids in high school, are there any messages that you could give to those parents who might be listening? And what's the best way to start high school students managing money more constructively?
The answer is yes, we've got you. We have got you covered. If you can get a junior and a senior in high school on this, and they can start learning while you're at home, and obviously they don't have rent, so the categories will be different, but they'll have a total leg up when they go out the door and are headed to college. It won't be so overwhelming for them. They'll really move into that experience with confidence, and that's amazing.
I think in college is a perfect time in that they're starting the adulting process. They need to be more responsible. They're not going to do well if they don't create an understanding of finance and how to manage their own financial independence. And so it's almost like an imperative at that point. But if you were to start it a couple of years earlier, say sophomore, junior year in high school, I think they get a good running start and be much more natural and less traumatic to a certain degree. So we really think that that's the starting point that makes probably the most sense is that at that age. And they also understand, if I can do this well, I will be more able to get what I want down the road, because I'll understand how I can finance and earn money and then spend it appropriately, not be out of cash every time I want something that I didn't save for.
I think when students get their driver's license, that might be a good budgeting moment to help them figure out gas and expenditures that they're making now that they have freedom. Tom and Natalie, what are you thinking in terms of students beyond college? Do you have some ideas for how they can take either their skills from Budget U or keep using Budget U when they are young adults?
So the idea is to start where I think the urgency is kind of most prominent, which is college kids. I think that's the point where we got to start. A friend of mine had 3 kids in college. He said it was death by 1,000 cuts. He had no idea how much he spent. And there's always, I want the budget to be here. And I'm kind of like that, but I don't really understand what's going on every day. I'm not the guy to set the budget. I can set it globally, but it really needs to be honed by someone who touches and understands what's going on every day. That's my wife. So it's really important that husband and wife get together on this and set it up correctly. And obviously the AI can help. But once you do that, then I think you've got a situation where people can adhere to the budget, everyone's happy, and it makes sense. The progression from college to independence is another area that we want to go into. So we want to take the college experience now. Our next release next month will have high school kids supported. And then it'll probably be 2 years till we have the next release, which would have the independent college graduate. And the idea there is to look at our database of kids that are going through college and really budgeting and cherry pick the best managers. So these are kids that really have we have a pseudo credit score we could generate using AI based on a 2-year history of expenditures. And the kids that really hit those marks are the low credit risk kids that we want to put on our own credit card. So at some point, we're going to have our own credit card. And the only reason to do that is to offer really great discounts for those low risk users. And so you could really go crazy with how much you give the person on a credit card if you know they're low risk. So there's a lot less liability costs. And so by doing that, it'd be a preferential way for them to start saving and earning more. We also want to do partnerships with companies that do first car loans and first home mortgages. So I think it could carry on from postgraduate all the way through adulthood if we keep it simple. We add value, we understand our market and the needs of those segments and really offer them something that no one else has. So our plan is college, high school, post-grad, and each of those has a different set of features, functions, and value points that we're going to expose to the market.
I just want to remind listeners that the person you're listening to is an engineer, is a physician, is really impressive, and now an expert in personal finance. I noticed when I logged in the website that there is the ability to download the app and use a dummy login to take a look at all of the bells and whistles. So I highly recommend that people go and do that. And we just can't thank you enough for putting together this product.
Our pleasure.
Yeah,
We're all in it together.
We are.
We're all
I
in
mean,
the
it's
same
just
boat.
And can you tell our listeners how to find your app?
Just go to the Apple App Store. They'll be on Android probably in another 2 months. And look for Budget U, Budget Space U. And you'll see the app and hit the download. You can then log in as a demo user and you'll have a bunch of data to look at as a parent or as a student. And once you set up your bank account and go to the next step, it'll then ask you for a purchase. And the purchase price is $10 a month per family. So you could have 10 kids on it, 4 parents, really doesn't matter. On that one account, it's still $10. So it's pretty value priced. You know, if it works well for you, you'll see significant increase in harmony, but also probably a significant ROI based on that, because you could save a lot more than $10 a month if you're both budgeting well as parents and kids.
So thank you so much for developing this great idea. I can't wait to use it myself. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for your recommended dose of civics and civilization.
We'll see you next time on Vitamin OC.